Dear students, in today's lecture we have to start theory of supply. So first of all, let's have a basic understanding about what is supply. As you better know, the total output is being produced by the producer. So producer has to decide how much quantity he has to supply into the market and how much he has to keep in his warehouse, right? So the basically the supply is that part of total output that the producer is ready to supply into the market for the purpose of sale, that is supply. Supply always gives rise to the earning for the producer, like revenue. So the amount of commodity that a producer will supply into the market at various given prices in given period of time, that is known as supply in economics. So for the supply curve, there is some specific quantities at given possible prices. So there is a set of different prices, there is also a set of different quantities being supplied. So we have a particular schedule in a given period of time. So this price and quantity supplied relationship is known as the law of supply, that we will come to study later on, right? So this is the common meaning of supply. Now let's focus on what is the classification of supply. On the basis of different parameters or different criterion, supply has been divided into, on the basis of time period, it has been classified as short run supply and long run supply. Short run supply means the supply for a short period of time. For example, festival seasons and for example festival, marriage season, a few items are there whose supply is for a short duration. For example, rainy season, say supply of umbrella for a short duration, supply of raincoat is for a short duration. So these items are included here. Next is a long run supply curve. Long run supply curve means when the supply is going on continuously for a long period of time. For example, daily routine items. Individual supply. Individual supply means the supply of a particular product made by an individual market and individual persons, or made by an individual producer. And market supply means the total producer into the market, if they are going to supply the same commodity together, then it is known as market supply. Supply for industry, supply of the product of an industry. Individual firm means the supply of a product by an individual firm. Consumer goods means supply of the goods which have been consumed by the ultimate end user. Capital goods means the supply of those goods which are used for the manufacturing purpose or for the production purpose, right? All the machines, equipments are categorized under capitalized goods, or you can say capital goods. So durable, non-durable goods, the supply for durable goods like furniture, electronics items, right? You can say in the real estate flats, these are durable items. Non-durable items means one time use items which can be consumed only once. Now let's focus on law of supply. There are some basic assumptions of law of supply. Number one, only quantity supplied of a commodity which is denoted by QS, or you can say Q, and its price denoted by P are variable. Other factors affecting the relationship between quantity supplied and price are constant, or there is always an existence of ceteris paribus clause. So keeping other factors constant is a common assumption which is known as ceteris paribus clause in the area of economics. So according to this law, there is a direct relationship between quantity demanded of a commodity and its price, keeping other factors constant. What are these other factors? These factors are basically cost, demand side factors, taxation policy of government, population growth, degree of competition in the market, etc. All these factors and many more, they affect the actual relationship between quantity supplied and price. Suppose we have a supply schedule of an individual producer. There are two columns. There are two columns in this slide. In the first column, we have mentioned different values of price. In the second column, we have mentioned different values of quantity supplied. When we focus on this table, we can observe that the value of price is continuously falling, and similarly, the value of quantity supplied is also continuously falling. So this table is clearly exhibiting that both the factors are varying in the same direction. Same direction means both are falling. So when we represent these points on a two-dimensional graph paper, Then we have such kind of appearance of the supply curve. On vertical axis we are taking price of commodity, on horizontal axis we are taking quantity supplied. When we point out these observations that we have gone through in the previous slide, these observations I am talking about, then we have different points, and when we connect these points, then we have an upward sloping supply curve, which has been denoted by SS curve here. So it is a linear curve. But sometimes what happens, a supply curve can also be non-linear. It depends on the nature of the data that you gather from the market for price and quantity supplied, right? Next is movement along a supply curve. So conditions are the same as we have already studied in case of law of demand. In the case of law of demand, there was also a case of movement along a demand curve, so the same concept applicable here. Movement along a supply curve is applicable when there is only a change in price. Other factors are assumed to be constant. Mean ceteris paribus clause is applicable here. So in this figure, initially the price is 3, and at rupees 3 the supply is of 500 units. Suppose the price is increasing, it becomes from rupees 3 to rupees 4. Now the quantity supplied also increases from unit 500 to 750. So in this case we are moving from downward direction to upward direction. Similarly, if there is a case of fall in price, then we can move from upward direction to downward direction. In this case, total supply will be reduced by the producer, because producer, or you can say the supplier, is always willing to take the advantage of the higher prices. So when the price is high, they will try to supply more and more, and if price is lower, then they will try to supply lesser and lesser quantity of the product. Next is shifting of supply curve. When there is a case of movement along a supply curve, similarly there is a case of shifting of supply curve, but shifting is possible only when other factors are going to be changed. Maybe only one factor out of other factors category, or maybe more than one factor going to change. So let's have an example of it. For example, initially we have a supply curve upward sloping, and the price level is P1. At this price level, producer is supplying Q1 quantity of output, right? Suppose in the market what happens, customers attitude changes towards the product of this particular firm, right? So due to the consumers reaction, that is the positive reaction, or you can say the consumers are willing to purchase the more quantity of the product of this firm, so the supply will increase due to the change in the preference order, you can say due to the change in the attitude of the customer or the consumer. So in this case the price is the same, and keeping the same price we will move further, and we will have at the same price the another point that is denoted by the output level Q2, right? So when we connect these two points, similarly at various possible prices we can take the multiple points, and after connecting these points we have another supply curve which shifts to the right hand side. So the shifted supply curve has been shown here with the dotted line, right? So price is the same, but only because of other factors, that is the consumer's reaction, or you can say the preference order. So supply curve is going to shift right hand side, so it is indicating that the total supply is going to increase. Similarly, if total supply is going to fall due to any other factor, then the supply curve will shift from right to left, right? Now let's focus on the slope of supply curve. In case of linear supply curve, the slope of supply curve is delta y upon delta x, right? Delta y, if you are representing on y axis quantity, the slope will be delta q upon delta p, and it means intercept on y axis will be taken in numerator and intercept on x axis will be taken in denominator. So basically when we focus on generally what happens, quantity is always taken on x axis, but in this figure y axis we have taken on horizontal axis and vertical axis is x axis. So in this, with this respect to this figure I am talking about, so the slope of this curve will be intercept on x axis, because I am talking about this vertical axis, that is x axis now. So this will be delta x upon delta y, you can see the intercept on y-axis, right? So here will be delta x upon delta y. It means vertical line segment um, uh, will also be kept in numerator value, and the value of horizontal axis will also be counted in denominator value, right? And algebraically we can represent as delta p upon delta q or dp upon dq. Why I am writing it as delta p upon delta q? Because according to me, price always we take on vertical axis, as in the previous figure I have shown. Yes, like this, price is taken on vertical axis and quantity taken on horizontal axis. So slope is intercept on uh, y-axis and intercept on x-axis. So x-axis is also taken here is that. So the slope will be delta p upon delta y according to this figure, right? So that we have represented here delta p upon delta q. Or when we talk about calculus, if we have to calculate the slope of a supply curve through calculus, then the formula will be dp upon dq. Okay, now let's focus on determinants of supply curve. Determinants of supply curve, or you can say the factors affecting price and supply relationship. Number one, cost. If the cost of a manufacturing unit is higher, then the total supply will be lower. Price of related commodities may be substitute, may be complementary items. The substitute items are those if there are so many substitutes into the market, and the price of those substitutes is going up, then always the supplier will try to reduce the price, so that he is trying to getting more and more attraction from the side of the customer regarding their purchasing behavior, right? Similarly, complementary items. So complementary items means if the other competitors in the market are making complementary items, and if they are raising the price of their product, then definitely the producer will also try to increase the price. Okay, because complementary items are always used in a fixed ratio. For example, car and petrol, for example, shoe and socks, for example, mobile and sim, right? Next is taste and preferences. If the consumer taste is going to be changed, for for example, I am the supplier, and consumer taste is deviating from my product, so in that case I need to reduce my supply. If the people are if people preference order is going to change, and they are getting more and more attracted towards my product, then automatically I will try to increase my supply. Similarly, innovations play a very important role, and when business firms are making more and more innovations, more and more innovative ideas they are introducing, the product designing, layout, color combination, characteristics, attributes, and so on, then automatically supply will increase. Rate of taxation. If government is imposing more and more taxation, then this will impact definitely the supply. So in that case, the producer will try to supply less. Competitiveness, I have already discussed. Population growth. If population growth is more, then the more and more people will be there into the market, and more demand for the product will be there, right? Weather condition. So according to weather condition, suppose there is a rainy season, and in this rainy season more and more demand will be there for umbrella, raincoat, if such kind of items you are manufacturing. So number of uses of a commodity. If a commodity has multiple uses, then the producer will try to sell more and more quantity of that particular product. Time period, short term supply, long term supply, I have already discussed. Nature of commodity. Nature of commodity means whether the commodity is durable, semi durable, non durable. This is the routine commodity, kind of like for example, shampoos, soaps, right? Detergent powder, and hair oil powder, cream. So these are the so keeping in mind such kind of attributes, so we have to focus on our supply. So these factors also affect the supply, and apart from these, so many other factors are also there in the market. These are the factors which are applicable from the supply side, but demand side factors also influence the total supply of the particular product. Next is supply function. As the case of demand function, similarly there is also a supply function which represents relationship between quantity supplied and price, keeping other factors constant, right? So this is the functional relationship between quantity supplied of a commodity and variables affecting it, such as price, demand affecting factors, taxation, competitiveness, cost, etc. So algebraically we can represent as qs is equal to the function of f4 function under bracket p for price of the commodity, t for you can say taste of the consumer, and what is c is the cost of production, right? Any other factor can be used for any other factor, notation, any notation you can use, but here p has been used for price of commodity, t has been used for taxation, and c for cost of production, right? And dash 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 indicating that other factors are also included. So this is a dynamic supply function because we are taken together so many variables, right? So on the basis of the factors included in the supply curve can, or you can say the supply function can be categorized in four categories. On the basis of time period, short run supply curve is there, long run supply curve is there, I have already discussed about it. Static and dynamic supply curve. Static supply curve means when we are going to study supply curve keeping some factors constant, and dynamic means no factor is assumed to be constant and we are going to study relationship between price and quantity supplied, right? Linear supply curve, when there is a linear relationship between quantity demanded and price, then the supply curve will be known as linear. Non-linear means when there is no linear relationship between quantity demanded and quantity supplied and price. Bivariate means when we are taking into account two variables at a time, then the supply function known as bivariate supply function. And multivariate means more than two variables are there, then supply function will be multivariate supply function. Okay, so this was our the basic concept of law of supply and supply function. So today we will stop here, and in the next lecture I will explain one more topic and we will have an understanding about that. So till then, thank you so much.